Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge, a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services focusing on the Port of Anchorage and the major commercial participants in the Cook Inlet region, providing customers with marine services specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is May 12, 2015. When we're not here, you can always find our information online at www.arh.noaa.gov, or you can always call our phone line at 1-800-472-0391 to get your information that way. If you are online and you want to check out our Facebook and Twitter connections, you can find that on the lower left-hand side of the web page. And as always, we're on YouTube. You can search that by going right here to NWS Alaska, AKwx TV. All right, now on to the hot topic of the day. We have fire weather watches and warnings out across the southern areas of the state. We do have from the eastern Alaska Range on over to Denali Park and just north to the Deltana Flats area. We have warnings out that start on Wednesday at noon and they run through Thursday at 10 p.m. And this is for gusty winds between 15 to 25 miles per hour and very dry relative humidities down between 20 to 30% range. So also we have a watch that's out for the Copper River Valley, and this basin here is going to experience the southeasterly winds as well between 15 to 25 miles per hour, and also relative humidities between 20 to 30%, and this is out primarily for Thursday. So be on the lookout for that watch to be upgraded to a warning as we head through the next 24 hours. And on over to the breakup map for this was updated May 2000, at the 12th at 3 p.m. 2015. So this can be found on our map online as well. Just go to the hydrology section on the main page when you get there. Now, mainly we're seeing things beginning to open up across all of the state, with just along the Yukon area, still some areas that we have mostly ice conditions, but you'll be on the lookout for some ice chunks, especially out near Chicken. They saw some large chunks of ice running down the river, and then across the north of the Brooks Range area, mainly ice across these sections as they've still been below freezing on a regular basis. So taking a look now at the fire danger as we head into midweek. This is going to be the main focus across the Alaska Range, the eastern areas, and then we have the very high danger there across the eastern range. Be on the lookout as we head in towards the end of the week. This will probably become quite expansive, especially across the eastern areas of the state. Now, looking at the weather systems that are going to be coming in our direction or not, we have a low pressure system with a comma cloud that stretches all the way back towards Shimia. So here's the tail of the comma cloud right here. You can see the clockwise spin just pulling a front across the eastern part of the Alaska Peninsula and on back towards the northern areas of the Bering. Just to the north of that, fairly quiet conditions with ridging just to the north. Now across the mainland and just to the south, the one area that we have low pressure is across the Gulf, and this is a weakening system, but you can still see a little bit of a spin here on the eastern areas of the Gulf, mainly drier across the remainder of the state. I'll put that into circulation one more time. You can see the clearing up of the clouds in the afternoon, and the white popping up on the visible is pretty much the snow on the mountaintops there. So let's take a look at the maps during the afternoon hours. We had this low pressure system with a weak trough just across the eastern areas of the Bering. This would bring some light shower activity along this weakening trough here. We also had some shower activity popping up in the central areas of the state, but just primarily showers, no thunderstorms. Thunderstorms were noted out across the western Canadian areas, but however, most of the state was dry with some light snow just along the northern Arctic coast. And here's the front that stretched from the Alaska Peninsula towards Merrimack Island, Nunivak Island, and then back towards Shimia. So we had a large swath of rain with this massive low pressure system that's slowly making its way north into the southern Bering. Here it is, a 975 millibar low, and for tonight it will begin to weaken, becoming a 982 millibar low overnight. However, this is an expansive system, and we have some very gusty winds along the perimeter of this low pressure between 25 to 35 miles per hour with higher gusts up to 50 miles per hour. So we have a southerly flow ahead of the system with a north to northwesterly flow just behind this low pressure system on the extreme western Bering there. Warmer across the center of the low bring rain to the frontal areas with some light snow across the northern Bering and the Bering Strait. So as we head into your evening, expect more showers to develop, just weak troughing, diminishing across the eastern areas of the state, and the remnant low pressure system across the northern Gulf will still continue to see a couple showers along the northern Gulf. However, as we head into the day tomorrow, this is the ridging that's going to be starting to influence much of the eastern areas of the state. We'll see the southeast stay mostly dry in the overnight hours. Some patchy fog is possible. As we head into your Wednesday, you can see this ridging is starting to extend all the way up into the northeastern Gulf area. So we should see another day, very warm temperatures. We also have a very large swath of clouds and precipitation that will continue as this warm front kind of pushes towards the Brooks Range. Expect to see some light showery conditions across the northern tier of the state with mainly rain across the Seward Canal and south across the western coastal areas. Lighter showery conditions will exist just to the south of this system, and very gusty winds continue across the western areas of the Gulf and the western areas of the state. Also expect some gusty winds starting tomorrow afternoon across the Alaska Range. Across the backside of this low pressure system, a strong northwesterly flow brings some light snow shower activity with some light rain across the western areas of the Aleutians. Much cooler conditions there on the backside, however, not freezing. So it's all going to be staying rain through Thursday, bring a weak trough through and another weak cold front dropping to the south and towards the east and heading towards the eastern Aleutians, mainly temperatures ranging around this front ahead of the system in the 50s with temperatures cooling into the lower 40s just along the cold front and behind it. So here's the ridging that continues through Thursday, keeping the southeastern areas very dry, and this is going to be problematic for the eastern areas of the state as we become very dry, a little bit tighter gradient here, causing the winds to pick up for your Thursday afternoon with the drying conditions here, the clouds clearing out. We'll see some drier vegetation as they're not going to be seeing a lot of rain with this last system. So be aware if you do have any fires, please put them out before you continue on with other activities. Here's the warm front making up to the coast on Thursday, and temperatures right now sitting in the 60s all across the coastal areas of the Gulf, with 71 reported in Skagway this afternoon, 60s across the interior, and the Kenai into the 60s with slightly cooler temperatures on the western Gulf into the upper 40s this afternoon. Looking towards the northern coast, we see temperatures drop very significantly across the Brooks Range with the upper 50s to lower 60s, and then ranging into the near freezing rain, 29 degrees back there at Fort Wainwright, and then improving warmer temperatures in the mid-30s to upper 40s all across the western coast there. And then across Bristol Bay into the 50s, and across much of the Bering saw temperatures mainly in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Looking at your temperatures for overnight, we're not expecting too much change. Upper 30s to 40s across the Aleutians and the Bering, with the southwest seeing temperatures maintained in the 40s. Along the coastal areas, temperatures will range between the lower 30s to the upper 30s all across the coastline, and then the southeast we'll see primarily in the 40s overnight. Interior, a big drop down into the 30s for the most part, and near 20 degrees along the north and Arctic coast back towards the Seward Peninsula in the upper 20s. Looking at your high temperatures tomorrow, another warm day, trying to reach 70 degrees for most areas across the interior and the southeast, with a late cooling start for the south and southwest. We'll see temperatures only climbing into the mid-40s to in the upper 50s. Now, taking a look at your flying weather for tomorrow, this is the low pressure system here out in the east causing MVFR mainly during the morning and across some areas of south central. However, that should improve during the afternoons. So with low pressure just mainly in the Bering Strait area, we'll see MVFR to IFR conditions across much of the north and northwest areas and back towards all of the Bering, which will be having that large low sprawling across the waters there. So expect IFR conditions across the northern and western areas of the Bering. Breaking those passes down into more depth, we have Anatuvik Pass, which will start out MVFR and improve to VFR later in the day, as well as Adigan Pass, MVFR to VFR. And then we'll see Lake Clark and Merrill Pass go from MVFR improving to VFR conditions. And Rainy will be VFR, Windy Pass, MVFR to VFR. And then Isabel will be MVFR to VFR. And Mentasta will be MVFR to VFR. Tanita Pass will be MVFR to VFR. And Portage, MVFR, possibly fog or low stratus there in the morning to VFR. And Chilkoot and White Pass will mainly be VFR conditions all day. So tomorrow, the freezing levels are right here along the Brooks Range back towards the Seward Peninsula and the northern areas of the Bering, and then the 2,000 to 4,000 foot slowly climbing across the Bering with a 6,000 to 10,000 feet increase across the area where we have ridging building in. Across the eastern areas of the state, between 6,000 to 8,000 and 2,000 to 4,000 across the northern tier of the state. Now looking at your icing areas, concern be low 5,000, light areas across the north and northwest and across the Bering below 6,000 feet, mainly across the central and the northern areas of the Bering. So looking at the jet stream, for tomorrow, the problem that we're going to be seeing over the next few days is this ridging that's amplifying the pattern across the Gulf of Alaska and a deepening trough which is going to continue to deepen, and that's going to keep that ridge in place. So here we've got a little bit of an omega block with this low pressure system just kind of shifting further north. So the jet stream just amplifying the pattern is going to keep anything from moving very quickly through this week. Taking a look at the 9,000 foot level, we'll see the strongest winds across the eastern areas of the Bering, and then we'll also see increase across the western areas of the Gulf out of the south between 30 to 40 knots. Across the southeast, a change of direction across the area waters. So we'll see between 10 and 20 knots there, mainly a southerly flow across the rest of the state, and a change of direction behind the low in the Bering, mainly between 15 to 25 knots on the backside of that system. Very similar pattern at 3,000 feet. We'll see the stronger winds across the western areas of the state out of the south, change of direction along the backside of that low pressure system. Southerly flow between 15 to 25 across the entire state, with the lightest flow remaining across the southeast. Looking at your turbulence, putting it all together, the strongest winds will be across the western coast with a large swath of turbulence across much of the Bering as we have low pressure out there in this direction. And that's mainly for a speed shear and not so much directional. All right, in just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
Water, the signature of planet Earth, essential for all life. Indifferent to our daily lives and commitments, with its many forms and ever-changing intensity, water can abruptly alter the way we live. We need water to survive, but we also need to be respectful of its power. Just as water gives life, it can take it away. For example, when there's too much, or when there's not enough. We need to understand how water works and how it will affect us. This kind of work has a name: hydrology. It means the study of water as it moves through the environment. The scientists who do this are called hydrologists. We're going to show you the different ways hydrologists study the water cycle and how important this work is to each of us. Rivers of all shapes and sizes divide our nation's landscape. Rivers are utilized for everything from drinking water to transportation to recreation. So it's important for hydrologists to be able to determine or forecast how rivers will react to different conditions. Hydrologists can predict a few hours or days into the future the changing river levels, the speed at which the water moves, and whether an area will be threatened by flooding. Hydrologists make river level forecasts, which are very important for emergency managers, engineers, and others who have the responsibility to protect citizens from the effects of floods. River predictions also help reservoir managers determine how much water to keep or release for such uses as hydroelectric power generation, irrigation, recreation, and flood control. Rivers include a main channel, where the water normally flows, and floodplains, the low-lying area that can get flooded, along either or both sides of the main channel. The boundaries between the main channel and the floodplain are called riverbanks. Floodplains are sometimes used for farming and industry, or for parks and playgrounds. People even live on floodplains.
The height of the water in a river or its level depends on the shape and slope of the river channel and on how fast the water is flowing. Rain and melted snow drain into small streams which make their way to the river, increasing its level. When too much rain or snow melt reaches the river, water can spill over the riverbanks, causing a flood.
The key elements in predicting floods are knowledge of how much water is in a river, how much more water to expect from rainfall and snowmelt, and the ability to track the water as it moves downstream.
In the United States, measurements are taken at over 7,000 river locations. In the National Weather Service, hydrologists at river forecast centers use sophisticated computer technology to combine these measurements of rainfall, snow, and river level. This helps them predict future river levels and provides the basis for issuing river flood warnings.
Flood warning for Eastern Clark County until 11.
In order for hydrologists to predict river levels, they need to know where, when, and how much rain falls. Too much will cause floods. Rainfall occurs when tiny water particles in clouds grow into large drops, too heavy to be suspended by rising air currents. Rain can fall in small areas of less than a mile, or broad areas many hundreds of miles across.
Determining the amount of rainfall over an area is like solving a big jigsaw puzzle, without knowing what the picture is supposed to look like when you're done. Hydrologists use tools like rain gauges, weather radar, and satellites to figure out which pieces of the puzzle go where.
In order to measure how much rain has fallen, the National Weather Service uses over 10,000 rain gauges. This one has a scale which is used to determine the amount of rain fallen over a given period of time. Another type of rain gauge, the tipping bucket, sends out electronic signals as rain falls into the collector that tips when a fixed amount of water has been collected. To ensure timely forecasts, most rain gauges are equipped with radio transmitters, which immediately send measurements to forecast offices.
Because rainfall can vary widely from place to place, knowing how much it is raining at just the gauge locations does not necessarily tell us how much it may be raining somewhere else. Because of this large variability, hydrologists use other tools to fill in the blanks. This is where weather radar comes in.
Using weather radar can be compared to using a flashlight to find something in the dark. When the beam of light from a flashlight illuminates an object, some of the light is reflected back and you can see the object. Instead of light, radar sends out a radio signal. Water, in the form of raindrops, hail, sleet, or snowflakes, also referred to as precipitation, reflects the energy transmitted by radar. The longer it takes to receive the return signal, the farther the precipitation is from the radar. The stronger the return signal, usually the more precipitation.
Satellites may also be used to help estimate rainfall amounts, particularly in areas where radar beams can be blocked by mountains. Hey, I'm done!
More than half of North America experiences snowfall at some time during the year, and in many northern areas, snowfall is most of the yearly precipitation. Snow is crystallized frozen water. When snow accumulates, there is a large supply of frozen water just waiting to melt and run into rivers. Most people think of snowfall in terms of the depth of snow. For example, weather announcers on TV report inches of snowfall. Hydrologists think about snowfall in terms of how much water it contains. Snow can be very dry and powdery, with only about an inch of water for every 10 to 20 inches of snow. It can also be very wet and slushy, with about an inch of water for every 2 inches of snow.
We're interested in snow water equivalent, which is how much water you would have in the snow if you were to melt it. We need this information in order to predict how much water will run off into rivers and streams when the snow melts, and also whether or not that snow melt will lead to flooding. We also need to know the snow water equivalent in order to determine how much water to retain in reservoirs during the winter and spring, and in order to make that water last through the summer and fall.
The snow hydrologists who gather this information use many kinds of equipment to make measurements of snow water equivalent.
Rain gauges, anemometer,
telemetry installation right here,
gamma detector,
solar panel,
precipitation collector,
pressure transducers, the temperature detector, temperature probe box,
air temperature sensor.
We've got 52 inches plus of water content stored out in the snowpack.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Speaking about melting, we will probably see continued melting across the Bering. We have some breaks already across the coastal areas along the west and just south of the Seward Peninsula. Expect that pattern to continue as we have another warm surge pulling up through this week, through the end of the week actually. And now going on to your southeastern marine forecast. Primarily a lighter day for your Wednesday forecast with mainly a north to northwesterly direction. We will have some diurnal changes here, a northwest wind possibly becoming south in the afternoon. So a little bit more of a local effect, north winds becoming south during the afternoons as we head into these warmer days ahead. So primarily a northerly wind to start your Thursday forecast, all below small craft, and a westerly across the outer waters, inner channels. We'll see between 2 to 3 foot seas on Thursday with 5 to 8 foot seas across the outer waters. And then looking at your Wednesday forecast, lighter winds here except towards the Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, and then we'll see also a little bit gustier wind across the Barren Islands and west. Southerly direction for your Wednesday with a variable across the sound and the inlet, and a westerly also across the northern areas of the Gulf. And we'll see seas increasing from 2 to 5 feet with a higher seas towards Kodiak Island for your Wednesday and Thursday near 9 feet. And then we'll see a gusty wind across the inlet and back towards Shelikof Strait, and lower seas again this day towards the north 3 feet, and then 6 to 11 feet as you head towards the Shelikof Strait area. Looking at your Alaska Peninsula, small craft for tomorrow, all out of the south direction, 5 to 6 feet for your seas on the Bering side and 8 to 10 on the Pacific side. Thursday forecast, lighter wind speeds out of the south direction with 4 to 5 foot seas across the Bering and 11 feet for the Pacific side. Wednesday forecast, we will have gales for tomorrow near Shimia at 35 knots out of the north. The rest of the area will experience a southerly wind at 30 knots. Small craft advisories across the area. Seas will primarily be between 10 and 12 feet, and then a little bit higher on the Pacific side between 15 to 19 feet. So watch out for the wave heights out there, a little bit higher with this storm system tracking to the north. And then on Thursday, the winds are going to come down as that low passes into the Bering. We'll see a change of the direction in winds just across the eastern or central Aleutians with a northerly flow breaking up the southerly flow, with the northerly flow staying out there towards the west. Now the eastern areas of the Bering will see a small craft advisory across the area for tomorrow out of the south and easterly direction. Seas will be between 5 to 10 feet. And then as we head into your Thursday forecast, strongest winds will be up towards St. Lawrence Island, and we'll see winds again out of the south and easterly direction with lighter wind speeds towards St. Paul. Seas again between 4 to 7 feet. So across the north and the northwestern areas towards Kotzebue Sound, the stronger winds out of the east 10 to 20 knots. And then across the Arctic areas, we'll see around 10 knots out of the north and west direction. Change of direction on your Thursday forecast across the areas. Strongest winds are going to be across the Kotzebue Sound and north towards the Chukchi Sea. So expect gales there, and then we'll see a brisk wind across the other areas with ice still being intact across the coastal areas. Now just a quick summary of your forecast. Showery conditions for your tonight's forecast across the interior and along the northern areas of the Gulf, with this low pressure system moving up into the central areas of the Bering. The strong winds will start picking up tomorrow across the western Gulf, but for now between 20 to 35 miles per hour with higher gusts of 50 miles per hour through channel terrain across the Alaska Peninsula. Northerly wind will be a little bit cooler on the backside of the system in the 40s, however, not cold enough for snow, so just rain conditions continue around this low pressure system. Gusty winds through your Wednesday, picking up across the Alaska Range, drier conditions causing fire weather issues. So be careful if you're burning to not leave it attended. Showers are possible in the southeast, but it'll dry up by the afternoon. And then heading into your Thursday forecast, dry conditions again across much of the eastern areas with lighter shower activity across the western areas and the Bering. I hope you have a great evening and see you back here tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.